You know, we all collect figures for different reasons. It could be a figure you had when you were a kid that you held on to or you repurchased as an adult. It could be a figure from your favorite video game, movie, or TV show. Or it could just be because a figure looks really cool and you might have a ton of them, but you need that one more version of it just because it looks so good and the sculpt looks so good. We collect for so many different reasons, and one figure might be more important than the other. But today we're going to talk about something that I actually talked about a few weeks ago and the bittersweetness to collecting wrestling figures. And a lot of you had positive aspects or positive reflections, and I do too. I love my Macho Man and my George Animal Steel, and I also like my Earthquake figure, and I've had it for a long time, and just recently I saw something that propelled this figure from a fun figure in my collection to one of my favorites. And we'll talk about that today. We'll talk about that today. Hey! Oh! Talk! Games! Talk! Games! So I really enjoy the show Dark Side of Wrestling. And every once in a while they'll have an episode where the character didn't do a lot of bad things in his life, or he didn't have to turn to alcohol and pain medication because he got out of the game before his time. And Jon Tenta, there's so many things I didn't know about this man's career. Some things I have in common with him. I mean, he wrestled in college. I wrestled in high school. That's a small thing. But we're both truck drivers. He ended up driving a truck later in his life. But we're both dads. And watching that documentary, and you know, I liked Earthquake when he was in the natural disasters, when he beat the crap out of Hogan a bunch of times. You know, when I was younger, I would be mad because I loved Hogan. But as I got to be an adult and I figured out what was going on with wrestling, I always had a affinity for the larger wrestlers like Bundy and Bigelow and the natural disasters. And that's maybe why I don't like wrestling as much today. There's not the big heavyweights like there used to be. But getting back to that documentary and seeing what a just wonderful human being this guy was, whether it was keeping his cool in Japan, where a guy just kind of lost it on him, and he prevailed with his temper, and that was a good role model for his kids or anybody just watching that show. The fact that he was a sumo wrestler at one point, came back to America, stuck with his kids, did everything he had to do as a dad. And I guess later in his life, he had to work retail, and then he ended up driving a truck. There's just something about this man's life that just, watching that documentary, it hit me hard. And unfortunately, John passed away at 42 in June 2006 at a young age to a form of cancer he didn't know he had, and it was too late. And just watching the documentary with Haku talking, I guess Haku doesn't do a lot of interviews, and he really could see the joy in that man's face talking about Earthquake. So getting back to the figure, I always liked this figure. I like the cloth goods singlet. I like the tattoo. This is an old Jack Specific, I believe. I've had this guy for a long time. I know there's better versions of him out there, and I don't have his partner, Typhoon. But something about this figure, I always kept it. You know, I sold a lot of my older wrestling figures at shows, and I always kept this figure because I liked Earthquake. And now I will always keep this figure, and he will go up there in the arrangement of figures forever. And that has propelled him, like I said, to a figure I like, to a figure I love. And that's because of the things I've learned about this man. Let me know what you think in the comments. if you saw the documentary, if you plan on seeing it now, if you have this figure, if you like the bigger guys, if any wrestling figure you have kind of means something to you more because you learned something about them, I figured I'd share. So let me know. I got to get out of here because these things always get me kind of worked up. Take care. Have fun.